President Yoon, who's now in Prague, is set to meet Czech Prime Minister Petr Pavel to seek cooperation on nuclear power, trade and investment, having wrapped up his summit with Czech President Petr Pavel. The U.S. Treasury Department has slapped fresh sanctions on entities and individuals related to Russia for allegedly contributing to illicit financial transactions between Russia and North Korea. Israel has carried out intense airstrikes on southern Lebanon, raising fears of an escalation of the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. It's September 20th, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. On day 2 of President Yoon's official visit to the Czech Republic, the South Korean leader will hold a one-on-one meeting with Prime Minister Petr Pavel to discuss ways to strengthen the Korea-Czech relationship. Our presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young is in Prague to fill us in on the details. Soo-young, walk us through what will happen in just a few hours. President Yoon met with the Czech head of state yesterday. What will be the purpose of his meeting with the Prime Minister?
Sure, Min. So President Yoon will hold a summit and joint press conference with Czech Prime Minister Petr Pavel on Friday, focusing on business and economic relations. And during their meeting, the two leaders are likely to oversee the signing of various memorandums of understanding, including a bilateral trade and investment promotion framework. Now, this would lay the institutional basis for further economic exchanges between the two countries across various industries. Now, this includes, obviously, nuclear cooperation, which has been pretty much the focus of President Yoon's trip so far. And while in his standalone summit with Fiala, President Yoon plans to indeed emphasize Seoul's commitment to supporting a nuclear reactor building consortium, Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power, in securing the final contract for the Dukovany nuclear power plant project. The Czech Republic is keen on having local businesses involved, so President Yoon is likely to set out ways or explore ideas on how to collaborate across all sectors of the nuclear power ecosystem. In fact, Yoon and Fiala are expected to visit major nuclear energy-related sites prior to their summit and working lunch at the Liechtenstein Palace, which serves as a guest house for state visitors. Now, as you mentioned, President Yoon has indeed already held a summit with the head of state, the Czech President Petr Pavel, and touched upon diplomatic, security and defence-related issues. Now, these include enhancing the nuclear power cooperation, enhancing their bilateral relations ahead of the 35-year diplomatic milestone next year, and providing humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. However, the Czech Prime Minister, though, he's the head of government, so he primarily oversees economic and social policy making. So his discussions with President Yoon will touch upon mostly economic cooperation.
So this all shows how the two countries are broadening and deepening their relations.
That's exactly right, Min. So as the two countries agreed on Thursday to enhance their bilateral ties from its current strategic cooperation, there are increasing political exchanges expected as well. So President Yoon will later on Friday be holding separate meetings with key members of the lower and upper houses of the Czech Parliament to request their interest and cooperation in deepening bilateral relations. President Yoon and First Lady Kim Gon-hee will then wrap up the second day of their official visit by attending a dinner and meeting with Korean nationals living in the Czech Republic before returning to Seoul on Saturday.
And we will, of course, bring our viewers live coverage of the joint press conference between President Yoon and Prime Minister Fiala later tonight. Thank you, Soo-young, for keeping us updated.
No problem, Min.
Also in the Czech Republic, President Petr Pavel took the time to speak exclusively with Arirang TV to share his prospects for a greater partnership with South Korea to promote bilateral prosperity and broader security. Once again, here is our correspondent Oh Soo-young to cover his remarks.
South Korea and the Czech Republic have a very promising future ahead in nuclear energy, security and high-tech cooperation based on their shared values as liberal democracies. That's according to Czech President Petr Pavel in an exclusive interview with Arirang TV. having agreed with President Yoon to enhance their strategic partnership in their summit on Thursday. The Czech leader highlighted the two countries' budding bilateral ties, particularly after Prague selected a South Korean consortium as the preferred bidder for its Dukovany nuclear power plant project.
We also believe in a great potential of developing this cooperation further on, not only on our own nuclear power plant, but also extending that cooperation and good record from I hope, a successful project to other European countries, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, who will be interested in securing their energy supplies through nuclear power.
In the face of objections by US firm Westinghouse, which claims intellectual property rights over Korea's source technology for the reactors, the Czech leader said it would also benefit the American company if the dispute is settled soon.
Both sides, KCHP and Westinghouse, because with the technology of Westinghouse and the Korean production capacity and experience and guarantees, I believe that it gives us the best possible mixture of parameters that we are looking for. And of course, for both companies, it will be better to close these dispute by settlement rather than ongoing legal disputes.
As the two countries look to broaden the horizons of bilateral cooperation beyond energy security, Pavel also highlighted key strategic industries such as ICT, artificial intelligence, high-speed rail and transport grids, along with space technology. These collaborations are all the more crucial between like-minded partners as geopolitical interests and conflicting values blur the line between national and economic security. With rising concerns about military cooperation between Russia and North Korea in the context of the ongoing war in Ukraine, Pavel stressed the importance of strengthening ties with South Korea in defense, security, and fighting disinformation.
We have a number of views that are very similar with South Korea, so I believe that cooperating with such a country is a natural choice. We are not only economic partners, we are also partners in tourism, in culture, but we are also partners in NATO, because South Korea is a partner to NATO, because we believe that we share also our security interests.
As the Yoon administration aims to bolster South Korea's role in defending freedom, prosperity and the rule of law as a global pivotal state, the Czech leader noted he and Yoon share similar worldviews against the rise of authoritarianism. Furthermore, sharing his personal experience of Korean culture from his visit in 2016, Pavel said he enjoyed Korean cuisine and history, particularly rural areas and monasteries, as he called for greater cultural exchanges. The two countries will celebrate 35 years of bilateral relations and 10 years of establishing a strategic partnership next year. Young, Arirang News, Prague.
And our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin explains what's special about Korea's nuclear power technology in light of its push to expand exports of nuclear reactors to Europe.
South Korea's nuclear power plant capabilities are once again in the spotlight amid President Yoon's visit to the Czech Republic. The trip comes after a South Korean consortium led by Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power in July was selected as the preferred bidder over France's Électricité de France to build at least 2 nuclear power units. The 2 units planned for the Dukovany nuclear power station are APR-1000 reactors, a smaller version of the APR-1400s previously built by South Korea at the Barakah nuclear energy plant in the United Arab Emirates. The APR-1000 generates a power output of around 1,000 megawatts of electricity, which is less than the APR-1400's 1,400 megawatts, but makes it more suitable for the Czech Republic's lower electricity demand. It also costs around half of what is required to build France's APR-1200.
We have a fully, completed supply chain. We can build the nuclear power plant at the right time, and by building the nuclear power plant at the right time, we could save a lot of money.
The reactor was also certified by the European Utility Requirements Association last year, meeting more than 5,000 requirements and complies with the latest requirements of the International Atomic Energy Agency and the Western European Nuclear Regulators Association. Meeting these standards is critical at a time when European countries like the Czech Republic are turning to nuclear power to go carbon neutral by 2050. If the deal is finalized in March next year, it could create further opportunities for South Korea to expand exports across Europe. But challenges remain, namely U.S. firm Westinghouse's claims of intellectual property rights over Korea's source technology for the reactors.
The basis of the protest is it's related with the nuclear export control. It's a kind of international agreement to not to export their technology to some rogue countries which might misuse the nuclear technology. But Korea and the U.S. government, we have a kind of alliance for nuclear power.
This alliance, he says, makes it likely that an agreement will eventually be reached, especially as the U.S. firm also has a long history of cooperation with South Korea. With Yoon's trip to the Czech Republic further ensuring success in securing the deal, South Korea is expected to soon cement its position as a key nuclear technology exporter to Europe. 이수진, Arirang News.
The U.S. Treasury Department has imposed sanctions on a network of 5 entities and 1 individual based in Russia and a Russia-occupied region for having supported illicit payment mechanisms with North Korea. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control released a statement on Thursday local time that it had designated a network of 5 entities and 1 individual for assisting North Korea and Russia to establish illicit payment mechanisms. The parties held accountable are based in Russia and the Russian-occupied Georgian region of South Ossetia, said the statement. In particular, MRB Bank, based in Georgia's South Ossetia region, acted as a cutout for a designated Russian bank to establish a secret banking relationship with North Korea's foreign trade bank. The Russian bank facilitated cash deposits from the North Korean bank through Russian entities to ensure the delivery of millions of dollars and rubles to the North's bank accounts at MRB Bank. The statement said at least some of the North Korean accounts at MRB were used to pay for fuel exports from Russia to North Korea. It noted that Russia has become increasingly dependent on North Korea for weapons procurement and economic cooperation, adding that Thursday's sanctions demonstrate the Putin regime's use of illicit financial schemes to enable North Korea to access the international banking systems which violate multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions. The U.S. government added that the sanctions demonstrate its commitment to exposing and disrupting networks that facilitate the funding of the DPRK's unlawful weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs and support Russia's illegal war against Ukraine. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, another North Korean balloon has been found on the premises of the Seoul Gov't Complex. Earlier on this Friday morning, authorities discovered related debris at the edge of the parking lot near the complex's main entrance. The balloon consisted primarily of household trash. North Korean balloons also previously landed on the roof of the government complex in May. Following the U.S. Federal Reserve's big rate cut of 50 basis points, big banks are placing their bets on how fast future rate cuts will come. According to a Bloomberg report on Friday, JP Morgan's chief economist predicted that the next cut to come will be another jumbo slash of 0.5 percentage point in November. In contrast, his counterpart in Goldman Sachs said that the Fed will go for a longer string of quarter-point cuts from November through to June next year. Policymakers in the FOMC meeting on Wednesday forecast half-point cuts by the end of the year. In the Middle East, Israel has carried out intense airstrikes on southern Lebanon, targeting key Hezbollah sites. This further raises tensions in the region following the fatal explosions of communication gadgets in Lebanon in recent days. Park Go-nu has more.
Tensions are escalating in the Middle East. The Israeli military carried out large-scale airstrikes on southern Lebanon on Thursday local time, targeting around 100 rocket launchers and terrorist infrastructure sites. Its aircraft also produced a wave of sonic booms for about 20 minutes, which was reportedly a separate show of strength. On the same day, Hezbollah struck northern Israel 17 times, reportedly killing 2 Israeli soldiers. This comes after the Lebanon-based leader of Hezbollah gave his first broadcast speech after the explosions of pagers and walkie-talkie radios in the past few days, which killed at least 37 and injured 3,000 more in both Lebanon and Syria. The Hezbollah chief said the recent detonation of the devices crossed red lines and accused Israel of what he said represented a declaration of war.
The enemy violated, through this attack, all the regulations, laws, and red lines.
Israel hasn't made an official statement regarding the explosions, but has tacitly acknowledged its role by declaring it'll continue military attacks on Hezbollah.
Over the past several days, we have held a series of important discussions. This is a new phase of the war. It includes opportunities, but also significant risks. Hezbollah feels that it is being persecuted, and the sequence of military and defense actions will continue.
The U.S. meanwhile emphasized the need for diplomatic solutions, while reaffirming that there will be no change to its military posture in the Middle East.
We are committed to the defense of Israel against terrorist organizations. That includes Hamas, it includes Hezbollah, includes other Iranian proxies. We will continue to stand by Israel's right to defend itself. But we don't want to see any party escalate this conflict, period.
Along with the fears of war getting wider, the UN Security Council is scheduled to meet on Friday to discuss the recent mass explosions. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
On the cultural front, streaming platform Netflix dropped a new teaser trailer and poster for season 2 of its original series, Squid Game. The teaser, first revealed on Friday during Netflix's Geeked Week, hinted at contestants playing new children's games involving the winner in season 1, Ki-hoon. Squid Game, released in 2021, is a Korean drama directed by Hwang Dong-hyuk. It featured hundreds of people competing in deadly survival games based on children's games for a prize. Season 2 will premiere on December 26, featuring Lee Jung-jae and Lee Byung-hun among various other Korean actors. We're back with our arts and culture segment this Friday. That means we have our culture correspondent Song Yujin joining us in the studio. Welcome, Yujin.
Happy Friday, Jungmin.
Happy Friday. What do you have for us today?
Well, Jungmin, today I want to talk about musicals because this year we've seen several Korean productions taking the stage internationally, even in places that are being called as the home of musicals. So what's behind the rising popularity of K-musicals? Let's find out. Broadway is a stage that many in the musical world dream of, having been the epicenter of theatrical magic for centuries. Among the bright lights and grand theaters is the Broadway Theater, one of the largest in New York City. Since April, it's been home to the musical The Great Gatsby. The mastermind behind this show is Korean musical producer Shin Chun-soo, the first Asian to solely lead produce a Broadway musical.
Producing one of America's most beloved stories was a challenging task. I found parallels between the 1920s and the present day and aimed to capture the bittersweet irony and the tragic grandeur of Gatsby's world, expressing the emotions of the characters through the music.
With no set closing date, the production is on an open run, aiming for 5 years. This means the show will keep running as long as there is an audience wanting to see it. But The Great Gatsby is just one part of a larger story. Earlier this year, Marie Curie made a successful West End debut in London at the Charing Cross Theatre. And just this month, Frida, the Last Night Show, had its U.S. premiere at the University of Southern California's Bing Theater. So what exactly is fueling the rise of Korean musicals on the international stage? Industry insiders say it's a combination of quality and passion. Actress Kim So-hyang, who starred in both Frida and Marie Curie in Korea, reflects on how far Korean musicals have come.
I believe it's our relentless dedication to creating something extraordinary. There's a special charm in how we craft these stories. For example, with Frida, the powerful narratives that let women voice their strength seem to mesmerize the audience.
For years, word has spread among foreign producers about the quality of Korean musicals and the talent of our actors. Government support has also helped smaller productions find opportunities abroad. In just the first half of this year, Korea staged over 9,000 performances, an impressive figure that's driving rapid growth for actors and production teams.
To keep the momentum going and help Korean musicals shine even brighter on the global stage, tailored support is essential.
The government has been supporting small original works, allowing for creative experimentation. However, larger productions need more flexibility, and the government could assist by providing infrastructure like rehearsal space or production studios. To help musicals expand internationally, it could also address regulatory barriers that hinder exports.
We need to build tryout theatres where shows can test their material before full-scale premieres. Currently, musicals often jump straight from rehearsals to opening night without the chance to refine their performances.
Through these efforts, Korean musicals will be able to capture the hearts of more audiences around the world.
You know what, Eugene? It's clear that dedication and passion behind Korean musicals are surely driving their rise.
Right.
But it's not just homegrown productions. Imported and licensed musicals also have become part of mainstream culture in Korea. Why is that?
Right, so according to the industry insiders and experts I spoke with, they say that the reason why Korea's musical scene is so thriving these days is thanks to the young audience. So musicals here in Korea really took off back in the early 2000s with the first run of the Phantom of the Opera here in the country. And after that, young people started getting more interested in musicals, especially when K-pop stars like Kim Jun-soo started performing in them. Now, when compared to other countries, theater audiences tend to be older, often in their 50s or 60s, but here it's mostly those in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And that's why people say Korea's musical future looks so bright, because our audience is young, passionate, and also continuously growing.
And finally, what are some ways Korean musicals can grow their fan base beyond, just relying on government support?
So one way is using universal themes or selecting stories that a lot of international audiences are familiar with, such as the classic The Great Gatsby and also Marie Curie. And for larger productions in big theaters, they're actually eyeing options to reach more people through video versions, whether that's on DVD or by screening them in cinemas. So for example, while it's not a Korean original, the Korean production of Elizabeth is set to premiere as a film version next month here in Korea. So exporting content like this will allow audiences around the world to enjoy more Korean musicals anytime, anywhere.
Our culture correspondent, Song Yujin, thank you.
My pleasure.
Heavy rain warnings have been issued in the center and northern regions of the country, including Seoul. As it is predicted to rain a lot, you should pay special attention to landslide damage. Currently, the landslide crisis warning nationwide, except for Jeju Island, has been raised to the caution level. Until Sunday, heavy rains of up to 300 millimeters are predicted on the East Coast and mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province, up to 250 in the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, and 120 to 150 millimeters in the Seoul metropolitan area. Seoul will start off at 19 degrees Celsius. Highs will move up to 23 in Daejeon, Daegu, and Gyeongju. It is expected to mostly sunny next week with weather slightly above average temperature. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
저희가 매일매일 자동차를 타고 일상생활에서도 쉽게 사용을 하는데 그런 자동차에서 타이어는 계속해서 버려지고 있거든요. 전 세계적으로 10억 개 이상 버려지고 있는데 특히 소각 처리될 경우에는 대기오염 물질들이 여러 가지가 나오게 되고 매립됐을 때는 지하수나 토양오염 물질들이 많이 방출되게 됩니다. 저희는 그런 타이어들을 어떻게 잘 처리할지 좀 고민을 했었습니다. 타이어가 가지고 있는 접지력이나 내마모성이 좀 우수하다고 생각을 했고요. 저희는 타이어 하나로 신발을 3.5켤레 정도를 만들 수가 있어요. 그렇게 됐을 때 저희의 신발 한 켤레는 타이어에서 발생되는 탄소를 8.9kg 정도 저감할 수 있는 그런 효과가 있습니다. 이 일을 시작하기 전에는 타이어가 그렇게 많이 버려지는지도 몰랐고 그리고 버려진 타이어들이 환경 파괴적으로 처분되는 것도 사실은 잘은 몰랐어요. 점점 더 적체가 되고 있거든요, 타이어들이. 시간이 지나면 지날수록 더 큰 문제가 될 것 같다는 생각에 지금 일을 하고 있습니다. 타이어마다 모양이나 패턴이 굉장히 많이 다양한데 내가 가지고 있는 신발이 다른 신발들과 모양이 다를 수 있다는 점, 그런 점도 재미 요소로 좀 다가가고 있습니다. 저희도 그런 계기를 보다 많은 분들께 하나 더 제공해 주고자 매일매일 신는 신발을 만들겠다고 한 것도 있어요. 조금 더 주변을 살펴보면은 나 스스로도 조금 더 환경 보호에 참여할 수 있는 일이나 물건들이 더 있지 않을까, 그렇게 찾아보시면 어떨까 싶습니다. 나는 다시 달릴 수 있게 만드는 그리너입니다.
지금 활발하게 활동하고 있는 젊은 연주자들의 손에 의해서 음악이 새로 선보이는 그런 무대입니다.
K-drama, the charm of Korea that captivates the world. Love like a K-drama. A story of us where hope and despair coexist. Fun and refreshingly satisfying. K-dramas carry warmth and move people's hearts. Meet the fascinating stories of Korea through K-dramas.
Thanks for joining us. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Han-daeun. The Yoon administration has reversed the previous government's nuclear phase-out plan, making a decisive U-turn on nuclear energy policy. It has approved the construction of new reactors and is actively pursuing the export of Korea's nuclear technology. President Yoon Suk-yeol, who has led the revival of Korea's nuclear energy sector, is currently in the Czech Republic, promoting the country's nuclear plant technology. And this shift reflects the broader global trend of reevaluating nuclear energy. In today's episode of Within the Frame, we explore the factors driving this global reassessment, the ongoing safety concerns, and also examine the competitiveness of South Korea's nuclear technology on the world stage. For some insights, we turn to Lee Yoo-ho, Associate Professor of Nuclear Engineering at Seoul National University. Welcome to the program.
Hey, good to see you.
And with us from Cambridge is Eugene Schwageros, Professor of Nuclear Energy Systems Engineering at University of Cambridge. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting.
All right, Professor Lee, let's kick things off with you. The global focus of the energy transition has been on expanding renewable energy sources in recent years, but it seems that countries are now re-evaluating the role of nuclear power. What's driving this shift in perspective?
Yeah, so the renewable and nuclear energy are both valuable as carbon-free energy sources. However, nuclear energy is unique in its ability to scale and produce large amount of energy 24/7. So its energy density, which is measured by the, say, power output per square meter or per kilogram of the fuel, is significantly higher than that of the renewables. So as a result, nuclear energy has the smallest environmental footprint while generating a substantial and affordable energy. So in terms of the safety, nuclear power has proven track record. Despite the significant incidents such as Fukushima accidents, the number of the fatalities per unit energy produced remains the lowest among all energy sources. So I think these characteristics make nuclear energy especially attractive today, as it offers an effective solution for combating climate change and meeting the demand of a carbon-constrained world.
Nuclear power produces no direct carbon emissions, so it's a viable option, isn't it, for reducing greenhouse gases while meeting rising energy demands. And the volatility in global energy markets is another important factor. Now, Professor Schwageros, many European countries that have led the phase out of nuclear power are now making a U-turn. Could you provide an overview of this trend, and is it being observed in other regions as well?
Thank you. A very good question. What we observe now is a result of Europe has very high living standards, so people want to continue maintaining these high living standards, which has to be accompanied by growth in productivity, which requires increase in energy demand. So ideally, as you mentioned, this needs to be carbon-free as well. So one of the options or one of the tools in achieving decarbonization of electricity is nuclear power. This hasn't been seen so far, so there are existing strategies, expansion of renewables, as was mentioned, but also transition from coal to natural gas, and outsourcing manufacturing, moving manufacturing from Europe to other countries. So these strategies led to a substantial reduction in carbon emissions in Europe. However, they pretty much exhausted their potential. So there's a need for additional electric capacity, which needs to be carbon-free. So nuclear happens to be a very pragmatic and practical choice, which is readily available and proven. I should also mention energy independence or energy security argument, which is particularly significant nowadays, I think, especially for Eastern European countries. Therefore, this discussion is now reopened.
So nuclear energy is a practical choice that can help maintain the high electricity demand while reducing carbon emissions. Professor Lee, the Yoon administration has scrapped the previous Moon administration's nuclear phase-out policy in 2022, resuming construction of Shinhanul reactors number 3 and 4. It also plans to build up to 3 new nuclear reactors by 2038. What are your prospects for the restoration of Korea's nuclear energy ecosystem?
Yeah, I'm very happy to see that this administration made a rational decision to scrap the nuclear phase-out policy and continue the operation of the existing fleet and resume the construction of the new nuclear power plants. And the nuclear phase-out policy had badly impacted the nuclear industry and its ecosystem, which otherwise I think would have continued to drive more. So Korea has maintained its nuclear industry's competitiveness by consistently building new power plants. And I believe the successful deployment of the new planned power plants, as well as the exports of the reactors to Czech Republic, will play a crucial role in restoring the Korea's nuclear ecosystem.
Professor Shuagados, the Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power was selected as a preferred bidder, as Professor Lee just alluded to build 2 nuclear power units in the Czech Republic, elbowing out the strong French competitor EDF. How do you evaluate the current level of Korea's nuclear power technology?
Well, Korean nuclear industry has a very good reputation. It has successfully delivered multiple projects nationally, and I should also mention, even probably more importantly, the recent Baraka project in United Arab Emirates. So nuclear phase-out didn't help. It did send a confusing message to the outside world, but the policy, as has been mentioned, has been reversed. So although I share this this concern, but it's largely been eliminated now, I think. So in fact, South Korean nuclear industry is a role model for the rest of the world. It kind of already achieved what other companies who are hoping to deploy their technology worldwide. So this is a success story already. And as we see it here, it has very good arguments behind it. So standardized design that has the most modern safety features, very robust supply chain, modern manufacturing techniques. All these features of successful nuclear deployment project has already been demonstrated by South Korean nuclear industry. Whereas the competitors' track record is not as spectacular. So it's been hypothesized that similar performance can be achieved through a combination of these good practices, but it has yet to be demonstrated. So I think the fact that there is proof and ongoing project that Professor Lee mentioned, sort of consistent delivery of project with very impressive results, is what made this bid successful, in my view.
South Korea's nuclear power technology has been recognized for its competitiveness on the global stage with several key strengths that include proven track record, as you mentioned, like the project in the UAE, and cost efficiency as well. But some claim that not all of the technology is owned by South Korea. Professor Lee, U.S.-based energy firm Westinghouse and France's EDF both appealed the Czech government's selection of KHNP as the preferred bidder. What are the key points of legal contention? And in your view, would it have a significant impact on Korea's efforts to finalize the deal?
First of all, I think these appeals, on the other hand, highlight the significance of the Korean tender and at the same time demonstrate how major players in the Western world perceive the global rise of the Korean nuclear industry as a competitive threat. So the Westinghouse actually claimed that KHNP's nuclear power plant designs utilize their licensed Generation 2 System 80 technology. However, during the process of localizing nuclear technology in Korea, all payments and compensations were structured to ensure that Korea could fully claim the rights to its nuclear power plant technologies. But on the other hand, according to the Nuclear Suppliers Group, which is NSG guidelines established in 1978, South Korea is required to obtain Westinghouse's consent when exporting nuclear power plants to utilize U.S.-originated technologies overseas. And the U.S. was okay with this back in the days when we exported to the UAE, but it is not okay this time, seemingly. So, but if the U.S. is genuinely believe in promoting the spread of the clean nuclear technology, this approach is not the right course of action, I would say. So Westinghouse filed a lawsuit against KHNP in the U.S. in October 2022, saying that the nuclear power plant technology of South Korea is subject to U.S. export control regulations. But the U.S. District Court dismissed the case in September. I remember it's September 2023, and Westinghouse has appealed the decision. So the important fact is that the bottom line is that the more conflict arises between the U.S. and Korea, the more China and Russia will benefit. So as traditional allies, the Korea and the U.S. should seek ways to cooperate and ensure that we can capitalize on even greater opportunities in the future. I believe that I'm very positive that this issue will be resolved, and South Korea government is expected to send the delegations to negotiate with the Westinghouse as it seeks to resolve the dispute by making a Westinghouse involved in the project one way or another.
I think that could be a very good argument to perhaps convince both the U.S. government and the Westinghouse. And both President Yoon and Czech President Pavel have voiced optimism about the mega nuclear power plant deal, so we'll see how things pan out. Professor Schwageros, hundreds of nuclear reactors are currently under construction or undergoing review worldwide, but as demonstrated by the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster in 2011, safety concerns are a constant challenge in nuclear development. What are your primary concerns regarding these issues?
I think nuclear industry has come a long way and learned a great deal of lessons from previous accidents or near accidents. It's also unique in a sense that it recognizes the fact that no matter where accident happens, it poses both financial and reputational risk to global nuclear industry. Therefore, it's in everyone's sort of communal interest to embrace and share best practices in both design and operation of nuclear reactors. Reactors we build today are orders of magnitude safer than they used to be 30 years ago. maybe additional point is that nuclear accidents are obviously never a good idea, but they do happen evidently. So it's very important to appraise the risks, environmental risks and health risks from potential contamination or radioactive releases from those accidents in a rational way. Unfortunately, the nuclear accidents perceived by general public as apocalyptic, whereas even the most severe ones are nowhere near that. So there are very few, on the order of 100 fatalities from Chernobyl accidents. In Fukushima, radiation-related deaths are 0. And it has been shown already that the reaction to Fukushima accident was disproportionate. So what I mean is evacuation order that was in place was unnecessary and caused more damage to people than good. So these kind of practices need to stop. That's my main concern, I think.
And amid ongoing safety concerns, Professor Lee, small modular reactors, or SMRs, have emerged as a potentially safer option for nuclear power generation. How do they operate? And where does Korea stand in SMR technology?
So small modular reactors, SMRs, are a class of nuclear fission reactors that are smaller in size and power outputs compared to the traditional nuclear power plants. And it produces typically less than 300 megawatts of electricity. So that's what it stands for, small. And when it comes to for the modular aspect refers to the fact that SMR can be manufactured in a factory setting and then transported to their final location, making their deployment much more flexible and scalable. So SMR is an endeavor to redefine the way of achieving economic competitiveness of the nuclear power plants. So Korea is actively developing and commercializing its own innovative SMR design, so-called the ISMR, and it plans to apply for licensing in 2026 and aim for the commercialization by 2028.
The disposal of used nuclear waste from nuclear power operations is another major concern. Professor Shuagaros, what measures should be implemented to ensure the safe handling of these potentially hazardous materials?
This is another example where reality and perception of reality are very far apart. Maybe surprisingly to many, but commercial nuclear fuel is surprisingly cheap and safe to manage. Its quantities are minuscule, and fraction of costs in total cost of electricity, the fraction of cost that is dedicated to waste management is also extremely small. It's practically invisible in your electricity bill. And another underappreciated feature is that there is a lot of stored energy remains in used nuclear fuel. So if society one day decides that it's actually an energy source rather than waste, then storing existing nuclear waste from commercial nuclear power in near-surface facilities, which, as I said, is extremely cheap and safe, it gives the society optionality for having this energy source for the future. If we do decide to have ultimate disposal of spent nuclear fuel, then there are proven solutions to place spent fuel in geological formations, which are stable. There's plenty of them. They're everywhere. There's very strong and convincing scientific basis for ensuring that the geology itself will provide sufficient immobilization barrier for radioactive isotopes from spreading around, even if the barriers that we engineer eventually degrade. Public opposition to citing such repositories has been mentioned many times as an unsurmountable barrier. So I would argue this is not unsurmountable. These things have been done before. So notably Sweden, Finland, and France have all been able to find suitable sites and with local population consent managed to establish their waste management policies and set up these geological repositories, which are on various stages of preparation at the moment, the most advanced being Finland. So I don't view nuclear waste as a showstopper for deployment of nuclear power globally.
I think you raise an interesting point that handling nuclear waste could be much simpler and easier than one would think. But I do have to point out that the debate rages on whether we can call nuclear energy clean or not. But what we know for sure is that we're going to need stringent measures, long-term solutions, and innovative technology to enhance the safety of nuclear power generation. Thank you, Professor Schwageras and Professor Lee, for your insights tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with more same time next week. Have a great weekend.
K-drama, the charm of Korea that captivates the world. Love like a K-drama. A story of us where hope and despair coexist. Fun and refreshingly satisfying. K-dramas carry warmth and move people's hearts. Meet the fascinating stories of Korea through K-dramas.
자연이 빚어낸 선물, 풍기인삼. 2024 경북 영주 풍기인삼 축제. 건강한 에너지를 충전하러 풍기인삼 축제로 오세요. 맛보고 체험하고 온 가족이 함께 즐기는 건강 축제. 특별한 인삼 요리와 함께 면역력을 높이고 활력을 더하세요.